different types of communications. We didn't have any cable TV to our shop, even though we were capable of installing it. But of course, it all boils down to money. But so we ended up like getting some, hanger and putting in the TV and making some makeshift antenna. And then we kind of got the garbled reception, and it was just right when the second plane was heading to, and we were like, I just remember it being quiet and not really knowing like what was going on. And I remember we were going in the truck on the way to the shop, back to the shop, and hearing it on the radio. It's like, oh yeah, it was a hijacking and whatever. And it was just kind of like the raw information that was coming out unfiltered. And I just kind of remember like, throwing it off, like, it's kind of, you kind of heard about hijackings a lot. And at that point it was just kind of like, oh shit, probably happened somewhere overseas. And then you find out it's at home, and then seeing everything that kind of unfolded after that, it was pretty trippy. And then, of course, deployments like started, ramping up. But yeah, that whole experience was definitely pretty trippy. He was talking about he was in the 11th grade when that happened.
Oh, okay. I was a sophomore in college. Yeah. But where were you during episode 22? Because that's what we on right now.
Nice. I like that.
You like that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little curveball. Tyler here from Operation RSF. And
thank you. Appreciate it.
So I would do the intro for you, but I feel that you can better tell who you are and what you're trying to do over at Operation RSF than I can. And we'll just kind of turn it over to you, and then we'll kind of just get into it.
All right, right on. So Operation RSF is a nonprofit organization that uses physical activity to combat symptoms of post-traumatic stress specifically, but also mental health in general. So we work with veterans and civilians, anyone who's been through a traumatic event and has those residual effects. We use physical activity, help get them active in order to deal with those symptoms. And what really separates us from people like Red, White, and Blue and Go Ruck, who all have their own physical activity programs, is we focus on from the couch to the habit. So we're working with people who don't have that motivation, don't have the drive to get going. So we help them get it, and we use accountability, encouragement, motivation, and get them tied in with the community so that they can find that purpose. We use challenges, a 4-week and a 10-week, in order to kind of give them something to work towards. Like, hey, here's a goal that I made. I have this original motivation. Day 1, I'm going to do this. Day 2, most people are like, nah, I'm going to stay in bed. It's cold out, or I'm going to go to sleep tonight and not worry about it. Well, you sign up for this. We're going to get you connected so that you have that accountability. Oh, we're going to push through this. And I know you guys talked with Doc Pate about it before, but with the SSRIs, you get that immediate satisfaction of you have that switch in the brain that's flipped. With exercise, there's a delayed effect. So you have to continuously be physically active to see the positive benefits on your mental health. It's not just a one and done. There is a benefit to a single high intensity exercise that can decrease anxiety and help with symptoms. But to see a lasting effect, you actually have to continuously be physically active. So that's why we use a 4-week and a 10-week challenge to get people going.
Because I mean, a lot of people still forget that your brain is a muscle. Like, it's just like when you work out, you can't work out one day and just think you're gonna be ripped and have the body and your fitness goals. It's an ongoing process, and I commend you, man, for starting that, man. It's very well needed in the community, man. And please keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate it.
Right, and I agree. I saw that, and I know it's usually like about 30 plus days before a habit is born or a habit is formed. And I appreciate like you guys doing that, and definitely trying to find a more, enduring habits, as opposed to, because I've always thought like just meds in general as band-aids. Initially, like starting meds or what have you, I was went in with that idea like this is temporary, and then once I kind of identified like those things to try to sustain myself afterwards, that those things definitely impacted me more, I guess, on a deeper level than medication did. And I'm not trying to say that like certain meds work for certain people, but at the same time, you're taking a lot more um, risks with side effects and possibly compounding your symptoms or what have you. So yeah, I mean that's badass. And when we talked to Doc Payton, she gave us your name, and then I started following you guys on Instagram, and then trying to do some of your challenges. Like I said, I was trying to do that yoga one, and I say by like day 5 or 6, because I was literally doing like a one arm plank, trying like holding myself up. I had this stupid like cast thing on my hands. I was all like, and I was like, oh, maybe I should wait before I slip and break my damn hand again.
Not a bad idea. I see some more improvement. I don't see any type of bandage on there now.
Oh yeah, I'm just working on getting this damn knuckle to bend more. So I've been kind of just forcing it. I'm waiting for that bad boy to shift over the joint, and yeah, it's probably gonna make my eye tear up a little bit, but it'll be all right.
Don't worry, be patient. You'll get there.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you were just talking about with your program. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like little by little over time, and then after a while, it kind of clicks over, and then that gear that you're talking about that gets people, empowers them back with the confidence of, the like feeling good, looking better, and then just having that overall energy and due to those endorphins. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Oh yeah, speaking about that monthly challenge that you did, that's something new we're trying to do, where every month we have professionals and different activities share videos, talk about what they're doing, or get people involved in different activities. Because if you say, hey, you have to run, there's a whole number of people who don't want to do that. But if you say, hey, here's all these different activities you can do, just try them for 10 days, a month, see what works for you. Eventually they're going to find the one that clicks for them and stick with it. Maybe it'll be something they never thought they'd want to do. Like, who knows, someone got out and said they'll never put a ruck on again, but once they're out in the woods carrying a ruck for 10 days as a challenge, in order to win, a t-shirt or a prize or something, they find out, hey, they still connect with that. It's what they like. Then that's the whole reason we're doing that.
Absolutely. Dope, man.
Yeah, and that's great. And that's one thing I've found from a lot of when I speak to veterans, or that's the one common thing I hear is, man, I spend, half my career out in the field. I don't want to live out in the elements again. You know what I mean? And so I feel that we associate all the negative stuff with, being out in the field, or, for those people that are out in the field or on deployments or wherever. And I believe that what needs to happen is to try to find something positive that they can associate being in the elements again, but more so on their terms as opposed to somebody else's terms. So that's one of the biggest hurdles that I found when I tell people, like, hey, you should try mountain biking, or you should try hiking on the trails. And that's the one thing I hear from most veterans is like, man, I ain't trying to do that anymore. I just want to be in the AC, I just want my hot shower or whatever. And I get it, but yeah, it's definitely a barrier.
Just let them know they can wear snivel gear now. They'll be fine.
Right? Yeah, there are advances in technology that might help the elements a little bit, make it a little bit more comfortable.
Exactly. And they can take their own food. They can, but.
Yeah. So I was, I'm not gonna lie, I was skimming through your bio and everything. One thing that stuck out to me: how are you guys? I guess have a shop, or helping people in Australia. How did that come about?
I saw that.
So we originally did everything through Instagram and social media, and we reached out to gyms because we realized that, hey, we're getting people involved, but we're not able to connect with them. So we're getting the research and the knowledge out there, but we weren't actually connecting with the people. So we realized we had to tie in with people in individual communities, which turned out to be like, hey, we need people who are passionate about physical activity, want to help their community. So gyms, coaches, people like that. So we put it out there on Instagram and the social media world up into the cloud, and we started getting hit back by gyms all over the country. And then we got hit back by a gym in Victoria, Australia, CrossFit 3000. So they have a bunch of dudes there who served in the military. They were in Afghanistan. I worked with some Aussies in Afghanistan. I love those guys.
Yeah, me too.
And as soon as he said that, I was like, oh man, I want to do what we can to help you. So let's share what we have. They ended up becoming a partnering gym. They were one of the first partnering gyms, actually. So it's pretty awesome, showing that there's a need there and they're doing the work in their own community. And that's about it. They reached out. They were following us from the beginning. It just kind of fell into place.
Nice.
Networking, man. Networking, building that community, man. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and that's what, like
how we're all here right now. You know what I'm saying? Connecting the community for a good cause, for trying to get that positivity, trying to get good results, trying to help people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah, and just getting that information out there. So how did you and your teammates get started on starting Operation RSF? Like, was there something that like triggered that, or is it just you just like talked to friends that were getting out and you saw that the rough transition they're going through? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, so we were on deployment and we did what we always do. We're sitting around talking. So it was me and my two medics. I'm finishing up a doctorate in sport and performance psychology. One of them has a degree in psychology. The other one is just one of those brilliant minds that can think through any type of problem. And we were talking about some of the research that's out there covering physical activity and the benefits on mental health. And we started talking about the guys we've seen transition out, go to sedentary lifestyles. They're no longer physically active, and then their purpose is gone, that they wake up for every day and all of a sudden they go off the deep end. And then we talk about guys that we know who just get that cocktail of drugs from the VA and they don't want to deal with the side effects. They stop taking it. They stop going to their therapy appointments and they go off the deep end there. So I put together, let's get this research out there to our buddies who got out. Let's get this research out there to veterans. And then we slowly realized that there's a gap between the sedentary lifestyle and the habit that's not being filled by anyone right now. And then actually what really sold that idea was there was a Psychology Today post about the benefits of running on mental health. I scrolled down and I read the comments, and there was a lady who posted, if only I had the energy to get out of bed, maybe it would help, or something like that. And that was kind of the igniter right there. Like, hey man, there's no one helping these people from the couch to the habit. So we started putting it together, came up with the 4-week challenge. A couple other guys on our team gave us ideas that kind of were taken from other areas. So now you have an accountability partner when you sign up for the 4-week challenge who has to go through it with you. And then another guy said, make sure they put their motivation at the top. So the whole form came together just as input from all the dudes on the team.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's good because you're addressing it from different levels, like the accountability thing, the motivation, and like personally, I speak from experience. Like, at one point, it was very hard to get out of bed, and I understand that. Like, I still had to because I was on active, but if I didn't have that, like, it would, like, I definitely would be doing it on my own. Like, it was, even when I did go for runs, it was like I was dragging like sandbags with me, like mentally. It was just kind of like sloshing through shit. So I mean, that's pretty badass, you guys. And I think what's impressed me more is that you guys started to like create this even before you got out. And a lot of people will wait until they get out to actually start something, but to start it like while you're in, and go bridging that gap, if you will, for other people that you're serving with now. They're going to be aware of it. They're going to have buy-in into it because they've helped contribute to some of the ideas of it. And it's just, hopefully it's just that constant, like, hey, when you get out, go look these guys up, you know what I mean? And just kind of have that constant flow of, veterans getting that information out and what have you.
Yeah, we never planned for it to become what it became. Originally, it was like, hey, let's get this out to the dudes we know and the other guys transitioning, and then just kind of snowballed into what it is today.
All right. I know you touched on it briefly, and I know he'll probably put it on there again, but just so people will know, man, you said they got in contact with you with social media. What are your social media handles and all that stuff? I know he's going to touch on it again, but just so, people can see it, you see it more, you remember it more, you know what I'm saying?
Every social media handle is at Operation RSF. So Romeo, Sierra, Foxtrot.
Got you. Tracking. Okay.
So for you guys listening, look them up on Instagram and just give them a follow and see the great things that they're doing out there. Just before I forget and before I do that at the end of the show.
It's
But
going
I
to be a
also
link at the bottom. It's going to be
put a
something.
link at the bottom.
It's something, yeah.
Have your leaders supported or you guys with these efforts and what have you? Being that you're still active.
Yeah, they've been supportive. It doesn't ever get in the way of work, so there's nothing that we're doing that's gonna be like, oh man, sorry, I can't train, gotta go talk to some people. But
they're
they've
kind of
been
synonymous.
Yeah, so there's nothing for them to be like, well, stop doing it, because it's not hindering my performance, it's not hindering me training or deploying. Everything is able to be done, and we've built a great team for the organization, great minds like, you know, Doc Pate, and actually have a couple officers who are in the military helping out as well. But everyone's supportive of it. They know it's a need. We all care about the dudes who get out. We all care about people who are struggling. So the fact that there's a new way for people to be active and not have to just turn to, you know, drinking or drugs or whatever is beneficial in everyone's mind.
Nice. And like as far as like the community of operators you're with, it sounds like they're supportive as well, because there is, and I've heard there's some other veterans that, especially like within the team community, that there is a certain level of, I don't want to say judgment, but it's such a alpha male like work environment, like most military, but like, you know, like most of the alphas are like in like, you know, the teams community or what have you, like special forces or what have you. And some of the guys that I spoke with were just talking about like how they didn't get help for a long time because of the way that they were going to be viewed by their peers. But it sounds like that's changing some, based off of what you're telling me.
It's changing, but there's a lot of guys who won't get help. One, because of stigma, but two, more so because you don't want to come off the team. So
right,
they'll drag, you know, dudes will hurt a knee, hurt a shoulder, and they won't get help same way because they don't want to get pulled off. They don't want to miss something. At the same time, they might be struggling with something mentally, and that same obstacle of, oh, well, they're going to pull me off the team, put me at a desk, is going to keep them from reaching out and getting the help they need, or having that big bubble above their head saying crazy, which they won't have, but they feel like they'll have if they go seek help. So the stigma is still there. It's not as bad as it used to be, but there's still a huge stigma there that's going to hinder people. But if there's ways to, you know, start dealing with some things, like by being more physically active or getting tied in with different groups, or maybe trying some of the new challenges, like trying yoga and mindfulness training can help quite a bit. They still have to work through the issues, but it can at least help get them to the point where they'd be comfortable enough to have those conversations, you know, closer to getting out or when their team time's done or something like that. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. But speaking of yoga, one of the things I want to kind of bring up right now is I've spoke with certain people about yoga. Some people, and I'm not judging based off their religious beliefs, but there's a misconception that you have to be Buddhist or you have to be a Hindu to do yoga, like, and have that belief system. And when I've heard that, I never really thought of it. Maybe I can understand it because at one time it was kind of my religious background when I got brought up was anything outside of this religion is, you know, the devil pretty much. And I'm not judging. That's just kind of what it was, at least for me. So I bring this up to say that you don't have to have, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you don't have to have any type of spiritual affiliation with any other religion. It's just the practices of, you know, doing these stretches, if you will, and kind of allowing your body to, you know, be in a more flexible position to reduce the amount of, you know, pains or what have you that come along with, you know, anything of life or work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm pretty sure there is some attachment for some religions, but you can do it without being part of those religions.
Okay.
So,
I just wanted to make sure that because I have heard that recently, and I was like, damn, I didn't even think that would be a barrier. But when I kind of like think back, like I like brought up my upbringing, that I can see how at one time that would have played into me not wanting to do a certain thing just because of the lack of awareness of what you're actually doing, even just the movements or what have you. So
Yeah, good thing for Google now, though, right? And Hey
yeah.
Siri and all that stuff. So we're
that's
good.
that's what you would think, man. But a lot of people, and I'm overgeneralizing here, but a lot of people have smartphones, but they don't use it to look up stuff. You ever heard people ask you like, "Hey, what does this mean?" I'm like, "I don't know. You got a phone? Look it up."
Who has the Monday night game? I don't know. Look it up on your phone.
Use a device.
Yeah.
I could tell you what it was.
Yeah. So Tyler, what would you say your top three outdoor events are? Your exercises or relaxing or pastimes? What would you say your top three would be if you were had to choose?
Top three. I like anything on a bike. Just because I've ridden a bike my whole life and I like going fast. Um,
Where do you ride?
I want to go fast.
yeah, I'm
You
more of
slow
a
down, Rich.
I'm more of a roadie, but I do have I have a giant mountain bike. So I had a Cannondale Jekyll 2 for since 2012, and I finally sold that this year. That was my favorite mountain bike ever. I have a giant Stance, which is a 29-inch full suspension. Then I have a Cervelo P2 for a tri bike,
Ooh.
and a Scott Addict for my road bike.
He does. So you do triathlons, correct?
Yeah, I try. I'm pretty bad at them, but I'll try.
Well, that's a part of triathlon. You try.
Yeah.
That's why it's in the word. I'm gonna try to do it.
Right on.
So what type of like well, let me can answer this. Do you know, well, maybe not, but I've noticed I've only been in the cycling community, more specifically mountain biking, in the past 2+ years or so. And what the deal is with roadies and being so, I don't know, uptight. I don't know, like,
Spandex cuts the blood
is
to
it
the
the
head.
spandex?
Yeah.
Squeezing all this shit together. And I don't mean to talk shit, but like honestly, I like most of the time we're riding on the trails, we say hi and stuff, and people were willing to talk and BS or what have you. And there's some like that don't do that, but I know especially with road is like they don't say hi for shit. They just pass by. They don't. It's like they're riding
Oh,
by themselves.
they don't even always wave to other roadies. So I was I was riding at on base last weekend, and I kept passing the same people because I was doing a loop. God bless you.
Yes.
And man, I waved to them. Nothing. They just had their head down. They were focused. They're too aerodynamic to lift an arm. I guess I have no idea what's going on. They weren't going that fast.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about, but
Oh,
um,
here's the question. Okay, so Tyler, would you know your top max speed and crash? Do you know your like highest jump, like
I
the most
I
air
don't
you clear?
I don't know the highest jump, but my max speed on a bike is 41 miles an hour. My goal is 50. So
That's cook.
I gotta
That's
find a
cook.
faster hill. I gotta find a longer hill is what I need. Um, but
Fifth? Oh, that's cooking.
I grew up riding BMX like all good kids did,
nice.
and we had this little turnoff on the driveway that dropped down on the field, and we put a kicker at the top of that. And we used to just
Send
barrel
it.
down the driveway as
Yeah.
fast as we can and send it. We kept making a landing, and we would overshoot it by like 10 feet every time and just smash ourselves. But
Nice.
that's what you need to do to learn how to go off a jump growing up.
Yeah,
Exactly. I
exactly.
didn't.
Yeah.
I had like a Huffy or something when I was younger, and uh, the house across the street from us, they used to throw a whole bunch of like if somebody was remodeling the house, they would throw all the big trash there, for the big trash pickup, and we used to use some of those boards or what have you and make ramps out of it, and some
Yeah.
were pretty shifty, shaky ass ramps. They're all wobbly, and some people would be eating it. because the ramps didn't stay up. So yeah, we had our own added risks, in there. But for the most part, like the biggest, I don't know about jump, because we went to Angel Fire. There's some pretty big ones, but the biggest drop I've done is 12 feet, and that was a free ride 512, and so I did that on my Diamondback, and I had 150 up front and 130 in the back. So I clapped my suspension on landing, and you could hear it, like the rear suspension. So I had to upgrade to a DVO rear shock, and that actually helped out. But I'm actually selling that bike right now, so I'm
just putting that out there
for anyone. Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
And anyone looking for a bike?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone out ready to donate an extra large frame mountain bike? I'm right here.
Right here. So Chuck's been trying to get into mountain biking for a while. He does a lot of urban rides on his he's a hybrid bike, but he definitely wants to hit up the trails of Kansas City.
Oh man, I had to search all over to find the extra large frame because my road bikes are 61 centimeters. So I found the Giant Stance was the only extra large frame in the area because right now everyone's buying bikes to sit in quarantine, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I'm pretty lucky I found that. It was the first mountain bike that actually fit me, where the Cannondale Jekyll was definitely way too small.
Yeah, that's the way I was. I was fortunate when I bought my bike because it was like the first bike I picked up. I was like, man, this kind of fits. It was like, yes, extra large frame. I was like, well, that means I have to get it because I don't see this.
Perfect.
So,
Nice. Yeah, and that's the funny thing. I've had a lot of interest for my bike, but everyone asks what size is it, and it's in the description, but it's, I don't know if people just don't read it. But all the people with it, I've probably had like 10 people ask about it, and the first thing, the question they ask, what size is it? I'm like, medium. They're like, damn, I need a large and extra large. All the people that I've talked to like are 6'1" and above.
Yeah.
I was like, what are the freaking chances of that? Especially in San Antonio. Short Mexicans around here, so. That's a joke, people. Don't take offense.
I was just thinking back. Did you guys used to make jumps just by putting a piece of plywood down on anything?
Center block.
No support whatsoever.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, center block or the curb, and that was the funniest part is we would put like a real thin piece of plywood on a curb, and then when you ride up it, but the plywood would collapse, and then you just run straight into the curb and go over the bars. Yep. So it was like comic relief.
Learning the process.
Yeah.
Or even, I mean, like I kind of learned how to jump a little bit because we used to find like subdivision neighborhood pools, like apartments, and we just used to ride our bikes into those. That was pretty fun.
Oh, yeah. Nice. It was just kind of like what was that show, that movie, like with all those kids riding in swimming pools in California, during the 80s.
Not kids. Was it kids? No,
yeah, it was kids. I don't think it would be adults riding in the swimming pools. Maybe, I don't know.
Name of the movie, Kids.
No, it was kind of like the history of like it was called like Dogtown or something, but it was about like all the pioneer skateboarders that kind of came in like late 70s, early 80s. I was going somewhere with that, but that's what you made me think of when you're talking about going on the swimming pool.
Might be a picture, something on there later.
Yeah, I might have to find something in there. So what I saw on there that you guys, for lack of a better word, erected like a building, and you have like a space now to do some of the research, or at least have like a headquarters. And like, what is your near future carrot, if you will, for the program?
What is your vision?
What's your vision?
So we don't actually have a building right now. We do everything online because all the people who are part of the organization are spread out. But we have a research and development team where we have Dr. Pate, and we have Liz, who's a mental performance coach in the Army, just smart as hell with all the certification program online, making sure all the coaches have the knowledge they need to understand not just mental health and the benefits of physical activity, but how to start those conversations, how to reach out to their communities to combat the stigma, because we use a grassroots approach. So it goes from bottom up rather than the VA and the U.S. government being like, hey, stop being so stigmatic about everything, you know, stop hating these people and stop judging. We're going from the ground relationships with knowledge showing that mental health is actually a physiological change in the brain. So if you accept someone who breaks their wrist going to the doctor, why can't you accept someone who's dealing with depression or anxiety or post-traumatic stress going to therapy to seek help? So that's a big piece in the works, and we're hoping to have that either the end of this year or early next year, and then just continuing to get the word out and spreading out to different gyms across the country. So when someone says, hey, I want to get involved in this, it's not just them hopping online. They can actually tie in with a gym in their local community rather than just, you know, jumping on social media or joining the forum, which is available for them if they're not comfortable going to a gym. But I'd rather them get tied in with people, get tied into a community, and find that purpose when they become part of the tribe, you know?
And that's really what's big. Like the one thing I found with mountain biking, like the very basis of it is community. And luckily there's a lot of veterans in that community. So, but either way, that's what it's what it boils down to, is people finding their tribe, their community, and just really trying, like, you know, building those relationships and connections. And that's kind of what we try to do here too. I mean, we talk about mountain biking and we have fun doing it, but that's kind of like one of the side missions of it, is to kind of just talk about it, like, you know, just by sharing our stories, and then kind of hopefully people can relate to it in some way, and maybe become a little bit more curious. And then also at the same time, you know, have people like yourself on there doing good things and try to bring that information so they can utilize those resources that are available to them that they may not know of. It's just impacting our circle, really. It's kind of like you did with where you and your team are doing within your else community, is impacting your circle and then making change through there. So you mentioned mental health coach. I believe I know what that is, but if you can explain a little bit more, like how, like what a mental health coach does, or a mental.
Because I don't know what that means. Yeah, I don't know what that means.
So Liz, a mental performance coach with the Army, where she's teaching them all the skills they need. So you're getting the physical skills to be better at your job in the military, whatever you do, whether it's communications or infantry. You have these individual skills. You need to be stronger, faster, be able to communicate better. She's working with them to actually help them think better, work through problem solving, to have those cognitive skills to control themselves in high stress situations. So it's not just setting goals, but it's also, hey, here's some methods for controlling your breathing so that you can deactivate your sympathetic nervous system. So you get out of the fight or flight, you engage your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest, so that you're able to stay calm under pressure. Or, you know, here's decision-making drills that you can do. So when you're faced with a decision that needs to be made quickly, you can run through these steps and be more effective and efficient at making the proper decision and then acting on it quickly. So it's pretty awesome because mental performance is getting huge. Originally, it was just golf that had mental performance coaches, but now pretty much every D1 school has some sort of mental performance coach involved, or at least training involved for all their athletes. So it's a really growing trend, and it's awesome.
And going back to what Chuck said, go ahead, man.
I think that was offered in my college. That wasn't offered. That wasn't even an option.
Is that why you're not in the NBA right now? You didn't have a mental health coach?
Yeah, possibly, at least still overseas with, you know, some overseas babies I can claim or something.
So, yeah, that's one of the things I've been kind of adapting recently is, you know, in my search when I got out of the military, it was kind of this search to try to find information for myself and kind of arm myself with the knowledge of how to make myself better. I did learn a lot of things like through different programs, and some of the things that were introduced were like meditation, mindfulness, breathing, but at the very basic level, I mean, which makes sense because you don't want to overwhelm somebody with like too much information when they're already getting a crap ton of information of, you know, methods and, you know, skills or what have you. But that's one of the things I found, and it started out with Wim Hof, where I did. I mean, I kind of came into it like 5 years ago with Wim Hof, but then I just saw it and I was like, oh, it's a crazy Dutch guy or whatever. Fast forward, he kind of came in my peripheral again, and I was watching YouTube and I saw some videos, kind of heard about his story. And if you haven't heard his story, I mean, it's pretty amazing what happened to. I'm not amazing in a good way, but like amazing in the sense he took the opportunity after a tragedy with his wife and really tried to find something to help people combat their mental health issues or what have you through breathing. I mean, it's not out original. It's not his original design. I think it's based off of holotropic breathing, which on its own can be dangerous if you're not doing it right and if you have any arrhythmias or anything like that. But so I wouldn't recommend Wim Hof to everyone, but that's kind of where I went down. I started taking like cold showers and preparing for ice baths and stuff like that. But more recently, it's been following Brian McKenzie, who talks about breathing, and also I saw a podcast with James Nestor. You know who James Nestor is? Talks about nasal, like breathe. I think he has a book called Breathing. I posted in one of the podcasts before. I'll probably do it again. But he talks about nasal breathing and how we become as a society as like mouth breathers, and how that is detrimental to us on many levels because the CO2 levels are, and I might be jacking this up, rise too much or too low, and it's not as controlled as when you're nasal breathing, and how to like deregulate yourself, go into the parasympathetic state as opposed to the fight or flight. Um, so it's all interesting and fascinating stuff, and I made that connection when you were talking about that's one of the things she works on is breathing, because that is the very basis of like life is breathing and learning how to control or relearn how to breathe. So do you practice any of those methods or any of the ones I mentioned, or how have you benefited from like her training?
Yeah, I do controlled breathing. She's in a different unit that I'm in. We have our own mental performance coach, which is where I was really sold on it. So, anytime, no matter what you're doing, you can learn how to control your body. Just one, becoming aware of what's going on in your body. So if you're stacked up doing something, you're getting ready to lift, you're getting ready to go in a door, you're getting ready to do a run, you can observe how your body's feeling. You can see how you're breathing. You can feel your fingers. Your limbs are going to be feeling different if you have high anxiety than they are if you're completely relaxed. And start controlling your breathing. Am I breathing too fast? Am I in control? Is my heart rate going, out of control? And that first step of becoming aware is where you can start making a conscious decision to change your body mechanics in order to benefit you. So yeah, I use a lot of breath control, even every day, getting ready for bed, just work on those long controlled breaths. And then a lot of goal setting and imagery, preparing for just about everything, to include preparing for a podcast, just imagining the conversations that we're going to have and go through a response. That way my brain's already seen it once before, so when the time comes, I can react quicker and already have done it in my mind at least once.
Yeah, that goes along lines with like meditation, almost like prepping your day. Like that's one of the tools that I've picked up. Like I might wake up 15 minutes before I actually have to get up, but I might not even move. I might just sit there and kind of, like you were saying, visualize, the day, what I have to do, kind of prep myself. So double salute to that.
Oh yeah.
And that's a hard part to come to too, is kind of going back to like mental health and PTS or PTSD, depending um, what somebody's diagnosed with, or just even trauma in general. Like you, at least from my personal experience, and I'm like, again, I'm not trying to make it about me, but it's just trying to use my experience, because that's what you got to pull from, right? From what you know. And it's not even being aware of your breath or your, like, I remember one time, a lot of times I'd be talking to my counselor and she was like, breathe. Because I'd be talking and I guess I would just stop breathing. and she was like explaining to me. But if she never started saying that, then I would have never been aware of it. And it wasn't like the first time, and I was like, oh, okay, I need to breathe. But it was like a number of times, so she had to keep reminding me.
There's a pretty well-known quote. I don't know who said it, but it's "Be where your feet are." So a lot of times people having those flashbacks, those memories that hit them, by focusing on their breathing and then becoming present where they are, they can realize they're not there. And then I had a professor who used to say, if you can breathe, you're alive and you have a chance. So basically, he was talking more along the lines of like, hey, you haven't failed out yet, but you can really apply that to anything. So coming back to the present, you are where your feet are. You're not in the past. You're not in those events. You're here and you're breathing. You're alive. You can work through this. You have another chance.
Yeah, if you wake up, everything else is extra. Waking up is the hard part.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think people tend to forget that, especially I feel that more people are reminded to like in today's times, as far as like, the era of, COVID or whatever, and death being more prevalent to, I'd say like on a mass casualty standpoint, not mass casualty, but like on a greater number than people are used to, at least, with the person. I mean, if you just kind of just pull out like COVID in general and like look at the deaths, I was just kind of going in my head like if we related to the number of other things that causes death or what have you. But and I think that's people kind of fall on two sides of the fence on it. One, it's kind of like they didn't learn the lesson, not necessarily learn the lesson, but aren't aware of like being grateful of like where you're at and what you have. And there's the other side where it's just kind of like still not being aware of what's going on and kind of still in that sleep state, if you will. Does that make sense? Or am I just talking out of my ass?
Nah, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Took a minute, but I got you.
I'm a little old, man. I got hit in the head a lot.
It happens. It'll come back full circle. So let me ask you this to change the channel for you, Tyler. You don't have to answer it. How weird and strange has it been during this election? Serving, being active duty. Because you're the first active duty person that we've had a chance to interview.
I don't think it's been that weird. You have the dudes who are really passionate about politics, and then you have the dudes who just don't care about politics. Regardless, we're going to go to work the next day.
Facts.
So whether it was called for Biden or Trump, I personally didn't care.
You still gonna have your duties you got to do. You know what I'm saying? Still got your do. You still got to have your focus. I get that.
I poked the bear a little bit to the guys who are really passionate about it. Send them some memes that are pro Biden, and then the guys who are really passionate about Biden send them stuff about Trump, just to get them worked up for the entertainment factor. But other than that, there really hasn't been anything.
Oh, okay. I was just curious, just wondering, because I'm similar. I was both sides of the fence. So I was like, hey, I'm just gonna have a new boss, or I'm gonna have the same boss. That's either way it's gonna be, pretty much.
I think I saw more with the Trump-Hillary election than I did this one. Okay. Surprisingly, I think because Trump was new, so having this guy potentially as president was something crazy. We thought, oh, this is it. We're actually going to go back to war and do things. He's going to take care of all the issues that have been going on. And he did. We finally got bonuses that matched inflation, unlike the previous years. But it wasn't what we were all expecting and joking around about. We were all like, oh, we're going to go they're going to unleash the hounds again for war. Basically was the mindset. And then, within a year, he's like, yeah, I'm going to pull everyone out. Or like, oh, that's not what we were expecting. But
do the curveball.
Yeah, it happened. So I couldn't really get into it this year because there was so much insanity on the news. I'm tired of hearing about people protesting. I'm honestly really tired of this pandemic, and the United States is a really awesome place. I've been all over the world, and you guys have been all over the world too. So you've seen you've seen what it could be if we just let things go to shit.
Yeah.
And a lot of people here don't realize, like, you have it amazing here. The fact that you can go get groceries right now is amazing.
And have like 15 or 20 different breads to choose from.
Yeah.
Running water, like, like toilets. Like, yeah, like talking about having to see somebody take a shit and you got to watch them take a shit just because there's no running water. Like, yeah.
No, I agree with you 100% on that.
Different lenses that we have. I know we keep talking about different episodes. Our lenses are so much different than the average person. So it's kind of hard for us to see, man, how are you tripping on this? Like, people over here can't even eat. They're killing their parents for food and shit and selling their kids. Like, it's that lens. It's that lens people don't understand. They can't even wrap their mind around it.
Oh, that's all right. Well, everyone has their own battles they're fighting. So.
Indeed.
Right. So, how did you? I'm curious. Like, how did you and Doc Pate meet up and kind of get together and start going on this venture? As far as like together to try to make this common goal. Did you answer that already?
No, I did not think so.
Okay.
So really, we brought a guy named Brian on board. He's another active duty guy, and we're trying to build out Operation RSF because it's to the point where, hey, it's growing. We're helping people, but it needs to grow in order to keep fulfilling the mission. So we looked at the needs, and it came down to we need a research and development because we need people who are just focused on the research because it's constantly coming out. A few years ago, there wasn't as much research, and now people are really getting focused on the benefit of holistic health, doing yoga or physical activity, things other than just medication. So we started really looking. I forgot who it was who introduced her to us, but really glad they did because she is probably one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met, especially when it comes to understanding the brain and all the impacts of trauma on the brain. So once that introduction was made and we told her all about our mission, she ended up coming on board. It's just been awesome because she gives her perspective to all of us so that we can have a better understanding of the physiological impacts on the brain, where a lot of us were just coming from a psychology background where we understand how the brain responds, but not so much what was going on inside the brain.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, she's very knowledgeable. I know.
While in that conversation, y'all two in the room, I'll just be over here like this with my notepad. What's that word? I'm gonna just look that word up.
But that's why we have that, like, we talk about this and like we're learning stuff in the process as well. I mean, we do our own research, but honestly, when you kind of get the experts in the room, you're able to ask those questions and try to figure out like a different way forward or a different way to understand. And that's really what it's all about, is just sharing that information and kind of putting it in a form where it's digestible for anybody listening. But so are you? I was gonna go somewhere with this. How's everything going as far as I know you had talked recently about like one of your teammates and popping positive for COVID and stuff. How are you doing as far as like like health wise and everything? You doing good?
Yeah, I'm fine. My test came back negative yesterday, luckily. So that's
good news.
That was one of the issues because one of the guys I grew up with and went to high school with passed away from complications from COVID. So it's kind of fresh in my mind that happened a couple of months ago. And just it happened sadly right now. But that was in my mind, and that was a lot of not just driving anxiety, because I felt completely fine. So just knowing that if I feel completely fine and I don't have any symptoms and I actually had it, knowing that if that guy hadn't said anything, I would have been out there, still going on bike rides, passing people who are running, breathing on them. Stuff like that kind of hit me, and it was more like, oh man, this is a lot more real because now I was in the loop, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
but I'm fine. I came back negative. I'm still finishing out the quarantine because there's the false negatives that happen up to like 50%. I read somewhere, but that was on Fox News. So I don't know if that's 100% true. Any news organization might sensationalize stuff. So finish out the quarantine and then get tested again just to make sure, and we'll see from there. I mean, it happens, and then you can't really blame people because they might have had the same situation as someone who was asymptomatic came by them or stopped in the team room and handed them something, and they just never knew.
Right.
That's kind of what's scary about this, or the fact that it can take like 2 to 14 days before symptoms actually appear.
Yeah, when this all first came out, I was actually talking with my best friend. He's a firefighter here, and when it first came out, I was kind of following it, and kind of following overseas different, like as you said, like sensationalization with the news organizations because they're competing for viewers pretty much. So they kind of get trapped into that cycle of, making things bigger and breaking news, like breaking news every 5 seconds. But he at first, like no shit, when this came out, I was like, shit's about to get real. If the numbers coming out of, Italy and all this stuff, I was kind of tracking all that, probably too much so. But that kind of led me down a rabbit hole where I was getting my bug out bag ready and just kind of just, I mean, probably too much, too extreme if you think about it. But I just rather be ready than not ready. And as the more and more it kind of unfolded and the more we understood about it and the more, it just kind of like time, I had to accept the idea that, we're all going to get it. It's in our population. And I started preparing myself to what I can do to help my immune system, boost my immune system, at least try to protect it as much as I can. So that kind of like unfolded like a different, like, place to go down and try to, like, another rabbit hole to try to learn more about my immune system, the gut biome, ibuprofen and all that stuff, how it affects it. So when all that came out, and then fast forward to recently, like I've had close family members get it, and I just found out yesterday that one of my siblings is positive for it. And then you kind of start going down those like the common, pretty much the things that COVID loves, as far as like, pre-existing conditions, obesity and what have you. And now I'm not judging by any means. It's kind of like that kind of comes with being a first world country, is you do, and it's kind of like the common marker for more successful communities.
Just come in contact with everybody.
Yeah. So I mean, but yeah, having said that and understanding all that, like if I do get it, then like I do expect to get it, and if I do, then be prepared for it. But when I had my surgery, I had a COVID test, and we were talking about this on the last episode. Even though I was pretty damn sure, like I don't have any symptoms, it did come in my head, like what if this comes back positive, and like what do I need to do after that to protect my family and so forth and so on. But so I do understand, like it's okay to accept things on different levels, but once it kind of comes like to your presence or what have you, then it like definitely changes the ball game a bit.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about myself. I'm healthy, and I have my faith, so if something did go wrong, I have an understanding where I'm going. But it's more the people you come in contact with, like just knowing that it could be your fault that someone else had some issues. I've seen some people who had it, they were fine afterwards, and now they're just having like lung issues, but it's been months and they're still having lung issues, which is insane. So just knowing that you could impact someone else's life like that's what really bothered me the most.
Right. And that's my fear of it too. It's like I've never been like a denier of it or anything, and I'm well aware of like some people, it's such a strange virus because it affects people differently, and even like stays around like for some time after with some people as well. But then there's the other side of it where it's like it doesn't really affect anybody.
One of my biggest fears is, okay, say you guys, okay, like for you, respect, you are in quarantine. It's some people out there that don't know they have it, get tested, get positive, and then, hey, don't tell this person I have it. Like, what do you mean? Like, it's not a secret. It shouldn't be a secret.
Yeah.
Like, I've encountered people like that. Be like, yeah, I have it, but don't tell this person. Or, yeah, I just got back in town, but I know I should be doing this, but I'm about to go out to this club and party. I'm like, I won't see you there. That's fine. I don't understand that mentality some people have. I don't understand that.
I think a big piece of that is kind of the transition that the world's going through, is that it's no longer a community, but now the community is yourself at the top of the pyramid, basically saying. So, like, hey, I need this, I need to get out, I need to do stuff, rather than, well, what can I do to kind of protect the people around me or build other people up? So I think that's been a big change to which, because of, I read an article on that a couple of years ago. They're talking about how social media gave everyone a voice. Therefore, the importance of everyone has been raised in their own opinion to the very top because their voice needs to be heard.
Yeah, it's given everyone a platform, even those that probably shouldn't have one. But that's the kind of thing. Like, that's the kind of double-edged sword for freedom of speech.
Everybody's platform is so important.
Right.
So to them, the person that created, of course, to them.
Have you seen that documentary, The Social? By chance? It's on Netflix.
I heard about it. Yeah. I don't have Netflix. I have Amazon Prime. That's it.
Oh, nice.
I'm behind the times.
I don't know if it's on Amazon Prime.
Stick.
Yeah, it's so some time back. I've always had like a lot of concerns, like with my kids using social media, what have you, and this kind of, and it was for good reason, just being in communications, what have you, and understanding like how apps and different programs have backdoors, and you can't really ever fully lock down a phone. It all depends on the user. But with all that, and then fast forward, you kind of see this social dilemma, and it's like, that's why, you couldn't really piece together why it was an issue, but it definitely has a huge play into, especially the younger generation, growing up with it, from a young age, and impacted their mental health, how they view the world, and then like how impactful like cyberbullying is. When I first heard it, I was like, that sounds a bit extreme. I got bullied too. But at the same time, when the bully's always constantly like in the room and you don't even know, and your child's going through this, I mean, it definitely puts a different take on it, and then it kind of gives you a different understanding of why certain, like, not to say that there isn't other factors at play, but one of the main factors, it being social media and like devices, impacting the mental health of most the younger generation today.
Oh man, I gotta look that movie up, because you're like the third person to tell me about it in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I saw a podcast with the creator of it, and he said that within the first week there was like something crazy, like 21 million people that saw it or something like that. And I do feel that a lot of people are aware of it, but it's just one of those things, like, you don't want to open that box, because once you open the box, you're like, fuck, but you don't know until you know.
Well, that's kind of like what we talked about yesterday, that everyone has stuff they need to share. If you don't share it, then everyone's going to relearn the same obstacles over and over again. But there's just a lot of stuff that doesn't need to be shared. So on one hand, all the knowledge you have, all the lessons you've learned in life, all the skills that you've gained need to be passed on so the next generation can be better than us. What you ate on Tuesday and all that stuff doesn't need to be passed on.
Right.
So I don't know, it's a give and take, a lot to gain, a lot to lose, but I have no idea.
Yeah. Speaking of social media, that's one of the things I found. Like, initially, I kind of was getting trapped in, because we talked about like how I feel like a douchebag when I'm taking a picture of myself, and like a selfie or whatever with my bike or whatever. Like, I still have those thoughts. Like, people are looking at me like, "Look at this fucking douchebag." But on some, like, I kind of struggle with the idea because you kind of get like you're trying to get information out there, but then in the beginning it was kind of like I was posting, like I felt like I needed to post something at least once every day to stay relevant in the sense of if I want to try to get this information out there, I have to be relevant and post at least 2 or 3 things a day or what have you. But then I found that it was being too taxing in my life, and I didn't like that. So now I am kind of shifting to if you're gonna post something, like try to post something with some type of value to it, and then just kind of sprinkle in those just because posts every once in a while. So I'm not as active as I once was, but at the same time, I don't try to be like oversaturated with information, like oversaturate people with information where they just kind of tune out. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I
Trying to
tend
find that
to.
balance.
So actually, we brought Brian on board, the officer, and he's been crushing it. He runs the social media because I'm just generally incompetent with that. Because a lot of times I'll write something and then I'll read it and I'll be like, does this even matter? And then I'll be like, no, let's just get rid of that. That's fine. Won't do anything for a while. And then come back and be like, no, this needs to get out. Like, here's some research, and then I'll disappear again for like a month on social media. So
Yeah.
it's just.
I
So
wish I had
luckily there's-
somebody to handle my social media.
Oh man, just put that out in the cloud. Maybe someone will jump on.
Right?
Another mountain biking vet.
That'd be cool. But I don't know how to. Well, maybe I could do that, but we'll see. But yeah, that's definitely one of the struggles of like of it, and especially when like I'm like you, where I'll start writing something and then I start deleting it, and it takes me like freaking like 30 minutes just to make a post because I'm like, well, that's too long or it's too short. I don't know if I become a perfectionist with it or if it's just like it's not that I am afraid of what people might say about it. It's more so just like I want to be this like I want this information to actually be um of value and not just like throwing shit out there, you know?
Yeah.
So that's good, man. That's good. You got you're moving on up. You got some assistance going on.
Brian's much smarter than me. You know, he's got the whole business mindset, so I have no problem saying that. But
That's good.
it's just a matter of surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you, which is pretty easy for me.
That's good.
It's very easy. It comes natural for me.
Yeah.
Find people. Yeah. So, but what else you got planned for today? I don't want to keep up too much of your time, and I can cut this part out. Just want to make sure that I'm being mindful of your time.
Oh, I am good. So I am working on my dissertation right now. I have to call a bunch of gyms to take part in it because participants can only come from CrossFit gyms in order to make sure the methodology is the same across the board, and try to get them on board to answer a survey and hopefully finish this degree in the next, like 20 weeks.
That would be great, man. And
man, you got it. Stay the course. You get there.
Especially in the RV, you got nothing but time.
And have kettlebells, some dumbbells, bands, bike trainer. I'm good. Nice. I don't need to leave. I'm fine.
Nice.
Sure.
A whole shelf of monsters. Keep me up, keep me focused.
So what's the riding like in North Carolina?
It depends where you go. So if you're around Bragg, it's pretty sandy. You have Smith. We're talking about just mountain biking. You have Smith Lake there, which you can get to during lunch, but it's a lot better than it used to be, but it's not great. You can go up around Raleigh. In Sanford, you have San Lee, which is a little bit technical. You have little rocks everywhere throughout the whole trail. They have a nice little pump track. They have a great jump line. Really amazing trail. Go up around Raleigh, you have really easy trails to technical complex trails. So you can go up to Lake Crabtree, which they have a jump line there, and all the other trails are completely smooth. It's a pretty nice, like you can go there and just time trial it and go as fast as you can. They have a technical section, which is a lot of fun, like a skills park in there, which is fun to play on. You have a little bit of everything. Then if you want some downhill, you go out west, which I don't
Is that
really
by like Asheville?
Yeah, you go out to the mountains because you have the Smoky Mountains going on. I'm from Pennsylvania. We call them the Appalachian Mountains and the Poconos, but down here I think they're the Smoky Mountains, or is that Tennessee? But you can go out there, you can do like downhill stuff, which is pretty cool. I haven't done it. I've seen a bunch of pictures of it.
So the program I ran with,
everything.
yeah, the Dirt Therapy Project, they just open. I have a chapter, nominated somebody for the chapter, the Dirt Therapy Project chapter. I think it's near Asheville, but they host rides for veterans and stuff like that, and go out, and it's that community we kind of spoke of earlier, and getting people outside. And then there are also different places like in chapters in Utah. There's one in Germany now, because one of the guys that was here,
That's awesome.
Got a job in DoD job in Germany. So there's a chapter there, and I believe they're expanding pretty good. So if you're ever in that area, or if there's a ride, if like, you can probably look those guys up and probably meet some of those guys.
I follow those guys. I just got their splash guard thing.
Oh,
sorry,
nice.
I'm brain farting on the name.
Defender.
That's the one. So I got the Fender. I really like what they're doing. I've been trying to tell as many people as I can about it. Just because anyone who's out there to actually help people and get people active, I'm pretty down with, and just want to get their word out as much as I can. But I definitely need to get on a ride. They need to get this vaccine out. I'm tired of this. I want to go hang out with people again.
Yeah. So as far as the vaccine goes, have you heard of anything? Not to say that you would be in the know of the latest vaccine. Like I've read like Pfizer had something, and then a couple other ones, and then they went back, and then now they're back again. But the side effects is my biggest concern with it.
They said the Pfizer one doesn't have major side effects except irritation at the injection site, fever and chills, which you're going to get when you're injected. Well, that's the same thing you're gonna get with the flu vaccine. I haven't heard anything that you guys haven't heard. Everything I've heard has been through the media, and then just watching stocks, because they kind of tell the real stories. There's a lot of stuff that's not being released. I don't want to say there's a lot of people doing, their trades and stuff, but if you watch a stock market, that's probably going to tell you a big secret on if one company is moving forwards ahead of the other.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I watch them from time to time. I just try to, especially it's more prevalent in the news now because the relevancy of it. But that's one of my biggest concerns is the side effects of it. But I do agree with you. If there was a vaccine that would, at least kind of put people back, give them back their normal lives, if you will, on some level, I think that would be a huge benefit. And then hopefully we learn from this and not do the same mistakes again in the future.
Do you guys read 1440? So
No.
It's a news source that you get in your email every single day that is unbiased, and it's the only news I've read which is unbiased. They literally just send you facts. You go to their website, it's not a news website. You sign up for the email, you get the email every morning, and they just send you articles based on pretty much pure facts. So they had one.
That's what we need. We need to go back to pure facts.
That's it. No opinion pieces. But they just wrote an article yesterday or the day before about how measles are making a comeback, and it's been we have the highest measles cases in 2 decades. So
is that because of people no vaccine?
That's part of it. That's part of it. And they said in the article something like 95% of the population needs to be vaccinated in order to have herd
immunity.
Herd immunity, thanks. So I was thinking about that, and then I think about all the articles I read regarding Pfizer or AstraZeneca or anything related to the COVID vaccine. And they're saying 25 to 30% of the population won't take it, so we won't see that herd immunity. I don't know. It's something interesting to think about, because the people who are having kids now have never been through a pandemic. Sure, there was the H1N1, the swine flu, back when they were probably kids. They don't really remember that. So they haven't been through everything. They weren't going through polio like their grandparents were going through or anything like that. So they don't understand the benefit of vaccines. There is a side effect of vaccines. It happens. Some people just react differently, but because they haven't seen how bad it can be and what vaccines can do for the world, they probably are more leaning on things that they wouldn't have if they've seen that.
Right.
If that makes sense. It's just me thinking.
Nah, it makes sense. Valid points. Valid points.
Yeah, I feel that like places like speaking of swine flu and what was another one? There was swine flu and there was something else, but they hit Korea pretty bad and it hit China pretty bad or what have you. But
SARS? No.
Yeah, SARS.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, SARS 1.
There's SARS and MERS.
Right. And it hit them pretty good. So it adjusted. So anytime you went to Korea or any type of Eastern or Asian country, I guess Far East Asian country, you saw that in the culture that people were wearing masks even when there wasn't an outbreak or anything relevant at the time. And I do wonder on some level if that's going to be kind of our thing too, as far as creating like a new not necessarily fear but a new phobia of like people always wanting to wear masks after like there's a vaccine.
I mean, there's going to be people who do that, especially people who are high risk are probably going to be wearing masks for long afterwards, but there's going to be a lot of work to do. So part of my research for my dissertation has been focusing on the impact of quarantine on people, because I started it when the virus first happened. There wasn't a lot of research on COVID, so I had to look at MERS and SARS, and you see increases in depression and anxiety, especially with healthcare workers. They're experiencing PTSD, and that's going to be there. That's a lasting effect that people have to work through. Sometimes your body can adapt, you'll work through it, but a lot of people are going to need to seek the help to get through that, to deal with the leftover impact that they had from dealing with family members dying or being locked up in quarantine, and you're fighting a almost invisible to the naked eye enemy, which is going to be, it's going to have a lasting impact. We're living right now, which is kind of cool to say, we're living right now in a chapter of a history book that kids a couple of decades from now will be reading.
You said nothing more truer. Yes. This is, yeah.
Right. And with that, like, I wonder if that's going to change the paradigm as far as how we look at vaccines, So we went from, I've noticed that with like just societies in general, like we did all the same, what do you want to call them, mistakes or what have you, but the misinformation was just as prevalent in 1914, whenever the Spanish flu, or was it 1918? The Spanish flu hit, like I saw a piece on how there was like just both sides of the aisle, if you will, like one denying it, the other one saying it was just that polarization at that time as well. So it's interesting how we did a lot of the same things then that we do now, and it's just they say we're supposed to learn from history, but sometimes it just doesn't seem like we do learn from any of our past experiences or what have you. And I don't know what that's about.
Most people don't.
There was a
coincidence or something.
I can't remember who it is who said this off the top of my head. I have a whole collection of quotes, but someone says the only thing we learn from history is that we don't learn from history.
That's true.
Yeah, that's probably the most spot on thing right there. But
how unfortunate that is, that it's too true.
Yeah, but what you guys are doing is gonna help change that, because at least you can get the word out, have the discussions. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are sitting around their houses right now just wanting to have discussions with people, and they might talk to their families, but we can't really have like sitting around a team room discussion or sitting around a fire discussion. So you guys are putting that out there, which is kind of cool, because I feel like I'd be sitting down with you guys around a table or having a drink and having a discussion.
Yeah, man. And
absolutely felt natural, man. It's cool. Like, similar thought processes, like-minded thinkers, on, various parts of the world, various phases in our lives. But, we still have that same thing, trying to get better and trying to improve. And our mechanics of how we helping improve connected with other people's is just going to keep, connect like Voltron.
And not just one topic, man, all over the place. I love it.
Yeah, and I really do feel that this is what needs to happen nowadays. And I mean, we're not the pioneers of this by any means, but that these long discussions and different topics need to be addressed. And even though we might jack up and say the wrong thing because we're going off of information that we learned at the time, whether it be misinformation or the right information, or we just don't say it in the right way. But if as long as we continue the discussion and not just kind of like close off and not listen to other people's ideas, because really a lot of these complex discussions need to be talking long form as opposed to just 30-second soundbite or just to kind of get attention of somebody else. And hopefully we encourage other people to have these conversations as well within their families or communities or what have you.
Oh yeah. And plus it's a good break from the monotony of the world,
It is. It's a good outlet, good release point.
You can only watch The Office so many times.
Yeah, this is true.
Michael C. Scott.
So many how-to landscaping videos so many times.
So yeah, Chug started up his own landscaping business.
Well, that's awesome.
In Kansas City.
Get after these leaves today. So
yeah, they're gonna get after themselves.
No, they're not. Somebody else is gonna get after them. That's that brown gold out there, brown green.
Browner. Oh man, landscaping be a great job right now. I feel like people need to plant more trees. Let's just get that happening.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm trying to be a horticulturist. That's my goal. I want to try to be a horticulturist. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What makes you want to go there?
I like being outside, and I've always grown up working in yards and stuff, and it's relaxing for me. Kind of like cycling. I'm just out there. Look at something, figure out how to, make it look better than what it started at, and then just maintain it after that.
Oh, I like it. I have a life rule of you have to plant a tree every year, but I don't plant freeloaders, only fruit trees. I got to give back.
I like that.
There you go.
I like that.
Nice. Yeah, like I know when I would always talk about like, oh, when I retire, I'm going to do this or whatever. But I remember one thing I would always say is like, when I retire, I don't want to be in charge of anybody. I'll get a job on base cutting grass, just mowing the lawn and not really having to deal with too many people. But then, as things happen and just this kind of shift into this different, effort or what have you. And I got to say, I'm really enjoyed doing it because, I get to meet people like yourself that are doing good things. And I get to, like I said, we get to learn and bring that information to people. I appreciate you wanting to do this podcast. That's one of the hardest things when you don't know what the protocol is as far as trying to reach out to people and how to open those doors. The way this kind of happened is I sent a message to Dr. Pate and just asked her like, hey, I was interested in what she was talking about in her research or what have you. And I asked her like, hey, would you be willing to do the podcast? And not really knowing what she was going to say. But luckily she did it. And this kind of, opened the door to meet people like yourself. And hopefully it continues to, to open doors for other people that like yourself that are trying to do good things within the community or their specific communities.
Yeah. She also introduced us to Pete. What up, Pete? Last episode.
Yeah, man. I'm working on that right now and it's coming out pretty good. We had like a 2-hour discussion and he got into the weeds on how PTS and PTSD, like when he was diagnosed. So he gave it a little bit of his story and also talked about how it works within the department and what he's trying to do as far as trying to go around to other police departments and interview peers or people that are still, providing a service to the communities and really trying to destigmatize mental health and within the, those communities. And
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's definitely a different. I definitely came away with a different appreciation. Not that I didn't have an appreciation for officers and what they do and first responders, especially in today's times. But I definitely came away with a different, appreciation for, some of the stuff that they have to endure. Arresting somebody and then going back in like to a restaurant and having to be aware that maybe that person got out early or something, and then your family's thrown into that mix. So definitely a different dynamic that I didn't really fully think out, but I was privileged enough, or we were privileged enough to, hear that story. So it's crazy when you're going back and editing it because you're like listening to it again, and I don't know, it's good stuff. It's good stuff. The way
Oh,
I
I
see
can't
it.
wait to listen to that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. He's a good guy, and I was talking about driving up to Colorado to do like a meet and greet with some of those folks up there, and I'm trying to line that up right now and maybe do a couple podcasts up there while I'm out there, like in person. So more to
Oh, that
come
would
on
be
that.
awesome.
Yeah, because I'd rather do the face to face thing as opposed to like texting or anything like that, or I'd rather do a conversation as opposed to that because a lot of stuff is lost in text messages. I feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. That's what I was saying. We should all be riding bikes in circles while having the conversation.
Should.
We all got
That'd be
GoPros on it. GoPros and headsets. That'd be
Yeah.
awesome. Like,
then
with
one
it.
of us crash or go down and like, all right, we gotta push pause real quick.
Yeah, but that would really make for something good.
Yeah, it would
Man,
be.
I just had something that while you were talking. Oh, the whole stigma things. It the only way we're going to see an actual change in the stigmas is people having that conversation and opening the door. I mean, there's only so much you can do when you're being told, hey, stop thinking of these people like this. That's not going to do anything. But when you have a conversation and you're forced to challenge your own ideals, you're forced to challenge your thoughts that you've had your entire life and realize that what you've been holding on so tightly is actually misinformation, that's when people start to change. So
Right.
I'm glad he's
Yeah.
doing that at that level.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Because it needs to happen at all levels. I mean, we need leaders to kind of step up and kind of challenge themselves in a different way as opposed to the traditional way. I mean, because you're pretty much having to expose your own fears to try to help other people, and that's a very precarious situation to like put yourself in, but I think it's worth it in the long run, especially in just trying to help others. And if that's kind of where I came to is like, what do how do I need to get this message out and do it in a way where it's going to be heard and not just kind of like just thrown by the wayside. I remember when I was leaving a unit, and my commander she pulled me in the office, and then we were having at the time an issue with DUIs, and since I was kind of going out, she kind of trust. Well, I mean, I gained her trust over time, and she asked me like, what do you feel that we can do with the DUI issue that we have in our unit? And I thought about it for a second, and I let her know that until we find a way to personalize it to the folks and show them, like I had suggested something that I had saw in another unit where they like staged, they found somebody that was highly liked in the unit, like somebody that everybody kind of either looked up to or just revered in the unit, and they staged like a mock funeral, and then kind of did the whole storyline. It sounds extreme, but until people can personalize it and understand it, like how it can impact them personally, I was like, I don't feel that that message is going to be heard. And so to that point, fast forward is like, how do I make a change? And it's like the only way I was able to come to this understanding of how to do it was to use my own person, like, and personalize it, and to hopefully break down some of those barriers, and some people can
Yeah.
see or relate to what you know what I'm saying or what we're saying or what you're saying or anybody we have on here.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So long before Operation RSF, the suicide in the military and the veteran community it's always been there, really. Like it rises and it lowers, but it's been a constant, and it's just part of, you hear about it. Oh, we need to help deal with suicides. But it wasn't until I went to a funeral for a dude I served with who committed suicide that it really hit me. Like, I need to be more involved because, I know this guy, and I had to look at his wife afterwards. Like, it's that personal experience that you have to deal with, and then trying to give people a personal experience who haven't dealt with it personally is hard. So that, I think, podcasts and listening to people just have general conversations about what they went through at least opens the door so that they're able to start experiencing and being willing to make the changes or give the support or open their mind at least to what's going on.
Have you had anybody come to you and be like, hey, I appreciate you doing this, or like, people that normally wouldn't have come? Do you feel that like wouldn't have God help if the program wasn't there? Have we gotten that immediate response back from anybody?
Yeah, so we were actually in the beginning, we were talking about possibly closing it down because we were like, oh man, I don't know if this is even happening, and things were just getting tight with time. So I'm like, hey, maybe we should just close this down. I don't know if it's even helping anyone. And then a couple of days later, we got a message in our inbox on Instagram, and it was someone thanking us for being there and helping them, and like, hey, this was a step I needed to start getting active. And they told us a story of getting tied in with the gym and then going to get help, and then that's what kept us going really in the beginning. But so we don't ask for information because there's a lot of people who they're not ready to be open about what they're looking for. So you can download the 4-week or the 10-week challenge. You can find all of our resources. You can go on the forum and read all of the studies and find all the research and the news articles covering post-traumatic stress and physical activity without ever giving us your name or saying who you are. And that's good because they have an ability to stay anonymous, but also it's hard because we don't track who we're actually helping. So it's the people who reach out to us and tell us their stories that allow us to know, like, oh, we're doing good help there. We're able to open the door, and that's kind of like the biggest impact. I'm not saying we look for that or we
right.
know,
yeah,
but it helps a lot.
You are actually, what I'm saying, you're reaching, you're getting some response. That's yeah.
It's kind of funny, and I'm like, haha, funny, but that you bring that up because when I broke my hand and all that like stuff, and I kind of went down that, like I went into that, like, am I still doing what I'm doing for the right reasons? And I talked to Chuck about this, and I really kind of had that self-inventory, and I talked to you a little about it too. I kind of just went through this phase, and I was reminded because I almost quit what I was doing too. And we did have, well, not we, but one person that I had talked to during one of the races I did, who was also a veteran. Based off the conversation we had, et cetera, and then I followed up with him like a week later, he was at that point in his life, and because of whatever I said or how I said it or however, like maybe he said something, because I think that's what has a lot to do with like people to go get help when they hear themselves say something that they didn't expect themselves to hear. Long story short, he went to go get help. Hopefully is doing well now. I still got to follow up with him, but that's one of the things that I kind of pulled to when I thought of like quitting, in the sense, not necessarily quitting, but it was just kind of like, am I even making an impact? Am I even making a difference? Are we even making a difference? And it's kind of like you, it's kind of like now I use that, that one person to try to keep going, because just because people aren't saying anything or you're not getting any type of feedback doesn't mean it's not making a change, especially when it comes to a subject like this.
Yeah. So I have a pretty weird story. When I was in high school, when I was in high school, we had to read this these short stories written by people who tried to commit suicide but survived, or they stopped at last minute. And one of the people wrote their story saying that if someone had said hello to them during the day, they would have felt like they existed and wouldn't have tried doing it. And then when I was in high school, I'm like, oh man, I need to acknowledge everyone I pass, which it's fine in a small town. You know, you pass like 3 people and you're like, hey, how's it going? But when you go visit places like in the city, now you're doing like a nod to every person you walk by. So it was one of those things that was kind of life changing, where I just felt like I had to acknowledge every person I walked by. And there was a time in my life where that just got super awkward, like on college campus, where I had to say hello to every single person that walked by. But
You're like a night at the Roxbury.
yeah, hey.
Sup.
But but the kind of tie that in is you don't realize what impact you're making on someone who's just walking by with something as simple as like, how's it going? Or, you know, you guys sharing your story. You don't know who's listening to this and who is saying like, oh man, that's what I need. That's the sign that today's not the day. You know, that's a sign that I'm going to get tied in with mountain biking, or tied in with yoga, or doing something that, you know, competitive moonwalking, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's their
Where do I
sign.
sign up for that at?
Yeah, well, that's enough for that. I
I
always
would not.
wanted to master that skill.
Yeah, I wouldn't win that one, but it's really amazing. Like we don't know what we're doing. We don't know who we're impacting and
Right.
how we're changing the world. So
Just keep going. Just know that it feels good doing it. It feels natural, man. And you know, like, you know, you're not doing it selfishly. You're not doing it maliciously. You're doing it for a good cause, man. So keep down the path, whatever path that be. Just make sure you got your protective gear on. You know what I'm saying?
It's kind of like I told my leaders in my last unit, because I went to a very different mindset and culture at my last unit. I was in acquisitions, but I was like on the program management side of the house. So it was kind of like the business side. However, like a lot of the sites I went to were like on the tactical side. And but when I got there, coming from my previous career field, it was like a whole new job. And I really didn't have the guidance that I normally have. It was kind of like, this is the information and figure it out, which was fine. But I told my leaders, like, all right, well, I'm gonna be going 100 miles an hour in one direction. So somebody, you know, I piss off somebody or something, I'm just gonna try to do right by what I think is, you know. And that's kind of like the same mindset I'm doing with this. Is we're going with the best. I say but we are going with the best intentions of trying to, you know, do what's right by my moral or ethical compass. And hopefully it does something until, you know, obviously we hit a wall and then we have to figure out a way around or over it. So I'm with you on that. Is just, we don't know what we're doing either, but we're definitely trying to figure it out and adapt on the fly, really.
yeah, well, I think you guys are crushing it, and I really want to talk about Chuck's sweatshirt.
Uh-oh.
You like
Yeah,
it?
yeah. Look, for those people just listening to the podcast, not watching, I've been looking at this SpongeBob sweatshirt the whole time because it's just the eyes popping up over the screen.
It's got the sleeves too.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that sweatshirt at?
California. My last road trip at Marshalls. They have some of the greatest things, like in Hollywood's Marshalls, that I've ever seen in my life. It's immaculate.
That's nice.
You're just sitting at the perfect height where all I see is like the eyes and the cheeks right there.
It's like, what's looking at me?
Yeah, I feel like it'd be my festive shirt. This is the early morning sweatshirt, hoodie, hoodie day.
Oh man, I love it.
Is it snowing up there, Chug, yet?
Nah. It's only, it's like mid-50s right now.
Oh, it got kind of chilly here. It's like in the maybe 60s, but it feels good. Like maybe high 50s, low 60s.
Yeah,
but
I don't see no wind today, so I'm gonna test it. It was too windy to go for a ride yesterday, but I'm gonna test it today though.
Yeah, I thought about going for a ride today. How about yeah, that's right. You're on self-quarantine for a little bit, so you got your stationary bike in there.
Yeah.
Are you on Strava? I mean, you probably don't want
No, I'm not.
put your Strava on blast on here.
So I have Strava, but I don't always upload to it. I'm on Garmin Connect. Like I crush Garmin Connect.
Oh, they just recently got like hacked or something not too
yeah,
long ago.
it crashed. I was pretty I was trying to figure out what was going on, but they lost like all data for a few days, and it was one of those like hacking for money where we'll unfreeze you if you guys pay us. I have no idea.
They got ransomware.
Yeah, but you don't realize like how often you use that until all of a sudden you can't use it. So even if you're just using it for yourself, but you want to know where you are for your statistics, and all of a sudden you can't even look at it, you're like, I rely on this way too much.
Right. That's what we were talking about last time, how technology, like we rely on it so much, like just like GPS for instance, and you stop learning how to navigate around yourself. You start losing that self-awareness of like where you are in like time and space, and you just put in the GPS and driving around.
Do you remember Google Maps where you're like, I'm gonna go here, you had to print out some Google Maps?
Oh yes, I do remember that. And I also remember, I'm a little older than you, but like we were talking about this last time, like actually taking like an atlas map on like especially when you're PTSing and you're having to stop, like, so you would like, or I would map out with a highlighter of everywhere I was going on the way to wherever I was going, and I would highlight in the interstate, and if you hit construction, you'd have to navigate around that.
Oh yeah. When I worked for 1-800 Got Junk, which is a glorified trash company basically. But we had the Atlas books, so I know exactly what you're talking about. We didn't have GPS. Someone would call and give us their address, and we'd have to look it up in the Atlas. But my buddy Joe and I back in high school were going, I forgot where we were going, but we followed Google Maps and hit construction. And I grew up just south of Philadelphia, and we ended up in Camden, New Jersey somehow. In his, luckily we were in his beat up car with super dark tint. It was a crazy adventure. But his headlights really didn't work, and when the sun went down, now we're trying to drive only on streets with like street lights.
Nice.
But it was growing up. That's what you did.
Yeah, it's good to get lost though. That's where you kind of, I don't know, you just kind of learn to figure shit out when you get lost.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's never lost, just a new way to get there. It's never lost, just a new way to get there.
Yeah, just taking the roundabout.
Yeah.
Scenic route.
Especially gets interesting when you get lost in a foreign country and you don't have a GPS. And then you have like the language barrier. That's right. He was in Spain for a while.
Yeah, but no, like before I went to the toilet, you was talking about the paper directions, the Google Maps. Right. That's what I used when I took a ferry from Spain to Italy, and then I had to drive up, and my GPS stopped working on my phone. So I was just using these paper fucking directions, speaking Spanish in Italy. But hey, I got there. I found it.
That's all that matters. I mean,
yeah,
I ended
up using the compass on my phone and these paper maps. I knew the direction I had to go was like northeast, and that was it. I used the compass and the fucking paper maps that I couldn't read because it was in Italian anyway.
Does the phone compass work like a regular compass, or does it run off of the towers?
I do not know. I think I had the first series iPhone back in the day.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Now I'm curious.
Because if the towers go down and your compass is shit.
I don't know.
Everyone needs a Lindsay compass in their glove compartment.
I have a couple laying around.
I got one in my travel bag. I don't know. It's just a habit. Did I keep my laptop, phone, compass? Yep. I got.
Oh, you're set.
There you go.
Yeah, because laptop can give him off my Wi-Fi from my laptop. My phone can, and compass if I get too lost. But I generally know my directions. I don't need the compass. I generally know which way I'm going, especially in my hometown. So.
I think that's what led me down the direction of like I really try not to use my GPS anymore. Especially I'm in my hometown. But I do use it like when in the case of I'm running late or what have you, and I don't really have time and it'd be, to get lost. But I started being aware of that one time. This was right before, they got Bin Laden or what have you. Well, we got him or whatever. Not we, I wasn't there. But,
we got Bin Laden.
Yeah, you were there? No, I wasn't. But we were running, um, like setting up sites around like different parts of Europe, and we had to go drive down to Spain from Germany, and we had just got some new GPS, units in our unit, GPS units in our unit. You know what I mean? So we were driving, and when we got to France, we were driving for about 2 hours, and I don't know, something told me, like, it was just my spider sensors or what have you. I was like, I don't feel like we're going the right way, and I've never driven down there from Germany at the time. That was my first time, and after about, I don't know, a couple hours, I was like, let's pull over. I had a couple guys on the team with me, and we pulled over at some gas station. And keep in mind, we're trying to be incognito, but we have a big ass, blue six pack that just sticks out. The big ass, 4x4 Ford 350, which is, anyways. So we pull over and we get a map. Yep, we were going 2 hours in the wrong direction. Yeah, we're going across France. We're supposed to be going south. So we had to backtrack it, added like, I don't know, 6 hours to our trip before like our next, destination point. But yeah, after that, I was like, I need to start like getting away from the GPS and stop being so reliant on it. So, being aware of it, that's kind of what it kind of popped in my head. Like I was aware that I'm depending too much on this thing, and I need to figure out a way not to be so dependent on it, especially if we have like a solar flare, which is highly likely, and takes out our GPS system or our satellites. Anywho, so
Same topic right there, talking about solar flares destroying, technology.
it's highly likely. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're aware of it. I mean, it's highly likely. I mean, there's corporations that are always constantly trying to upgrade the national grid, and it's happened before. I believe in the 1980s or 90s, there was a blackout along the East Coast, and that was due to a solar flare. And right now, if you track any type of space weather, right now the sun is going through, and it sounds like apocalyptic, like conspiracy theory, but it's not. I mean, NASA's been tracking it and what have you, but like the sun is going through a cycle right now. It goes through 12,000 year cycles, and right now it's in that cycle, and the solar flares are starting to ramp up. So if we're in the right place at the wrong time, then it will, depending on the level of solar flare that it is, and there's a rating for it, it could impact our national grid and power, internet, phones, and it's just kind of like almost like an EMP. It just takes out everything, fries everything.
Or just destroy that. What's that called? Where all the satellite, the geosynchronous belt, where all the GPS satellites are, just destroy them.
Yep, and
then
I don't
everyone
know.
goes back to Google Maps. That's it.
Yeah,
right back
to
the
paper.
up underneath the sea.
Yep. But that's definitely just something to be aware of and not necessarily obsess over it, but at least when it does happen, we can not be so surprised by it. And it's kind of one of the things we talked about, and I've referenced like where I get my information with that. But that's a definitely conversation that we could have, not necessarily fun on, but it's definitely very interesting because it is a very likely scenario. What's that?
Definitely another rabbit hole to go down.
Yep. But Tyler, I would love to continue with this, but I know you got other stuff to do. I'm pretty sure you have the rest of the day. I know you're going to be in your RV, but if you would be interested in coming back on the show sometime, or if there's anything else that you wanted to plug before you get off, I mean, please do that. Do that now, and then we can, do our signs off and goodbyes or what have you.
Yeah, I'd be glad to come back anytime, continue the conversation with you guys, whether about Operation RSF or, solar flares. Either one I'm completely down with.
Putting together a ride, like with everybody on the episodes, man, we should like somehow, like at the end of this first season, like put together a ride where we all meet up somewhere. I think that'd be extremely amazing.
That would be cool, man.
Yeah.
We should look at doing it, like finding like a central place and just kind of throw it up, and people can make it. They can make it. If not, we meet up with whoever. But that's something we could do, man.
Yeah,
definitely.
Throw it out in the atmosphere.
That would be awesome. I'd be
be
down so long as this pandemic's over.
Right. Yeah, then there's always that. That kind of put a
Yeah.
kibosh on a lot of things I was trying to do this year, but like just like everyone else, it affected us, but in its own ways. But do you have any other things that you wanted to bring up before we got off or anything?
Absolutely. If anyone is looking to try out Operation RSF or any of our challenges, visit us at operationrsf.org, or you can reach out to us on any of the social medias at Operation RSF. Get involved with a gym that's near them. If they're in a gym and they are passionate about the same field, basically passionate about helping people with who are going through mental health issues, and reach out to us, have their gyms reach out to us. We're looking for partners to join us across the country. And if they have any questions, we're here. We want to help. And even if you just want someone to talk to, we got a bunch of veterans working for us who will listen, have conversations, and be able to relate and be there.
Nice. Well, thank you for all you're doing over there with that. I'm not to say you need my thanks for it, but I appreciate what you're doing. It's definitely, I'm pretty sure it's making an impact on people. And
Absolutely,
thanks for coming on and sharing your a little bit about like what you're trying to do. And I wish you all the best, and look forward to having you on again. And we can talk about solar flares or whatever else. And we kind of conversation go wherever it goes, and we'll just kind of unpackage it and have fun with it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for what you guys are doing. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Stay safe out there, man. Get strong. I'll see you in there.
Yeah, catch you
later.
Stay
safe, and we'll talk to you later.
All right.
All right.